Right, welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Jacob Worth. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you. Hello. Hope you're well.
Yeah, all good, mate. Right, we've got this up and running finally after the standard technical difficulties.
Oh, mate, typical with me. Lockdown will finish by the time you've got me doing technology.
No, honestly, mate, it's not just you. It's bloody. I think it might be this program, to be honest. Right. So, for those people that don't know you, give us a bit of background info about you, and we'll go from there, mate.
So, I'm 21 years old, a northerner, as you can probably tell from my accent. I was born in Cheshire, and I moved to London in 2015. End of 2015, going on 16, to pursue my career in the musical theatre industry. So I danced since I was a little kid, and then basically just trained on more of a professional scale, and then went away for vocational college. Obviously, fishing was always sort of there alongside that. My dad had took me when I was a little kid, and sort of went on from there, really. I got into my carp fishing probably around 13, 14. And I sort of carried it on. I didn't think there was much fishing to be done in London when I first moved, if I'm honest. So I didn't even take my gear with me. I was so focused on the performing and stuff that the fishing was always a hobby. I never had in my mind that I could ever make a living or anything out of fishing. And it's obviously, it's even the best in the game. Most people have another job going. So it wasn't even in the pipeline for me at all. It was purely just fun and a hobby. So I went to college, didn't have my gear. And I started wandering, say in end of my second year, I started wandering around, finding a few spots. And then, I realised there was actually a lot of fishing to be done in London. And it really, it got me going, like seeing that different style of it, like being able to fish for these carp in the like the urban jungle, if you like completely different to what I'd experienced before. So that got me into it, and I got all my gear. And then, ever since then, I've tried to balance the performing and the fishing together, and basically got me to this stage now, really.
And have you documented all your fishing, all your carp fishing in London, sort of right from the get-go?
Not really. So when I moved to London, I didn't have Instagram or anything like that for my fishing. Like I'd literally just fished park lakes, and just like I said, just for pure fun. No social media whatsoever. I used to watch Carl and Alex's videos and think, oh, that's really cool. And I remember once I tried to do a little video on my phone, and I was just horrendous. So I scrapped that idea. But I suppose it started purely basically just for me to create like a gallery of the fish I was catching. After I left college, I was dragging my mate around with me around London, just sort of doing late nights and then going home at like 2 a.m. And I just thought these fish are like incredible. Like I'd not caught loads of 20-pounders. I don't know if you know the area, Nantwich, but there is lakes within an hour's drive. But with me being younger, I just sort of mainly caught small fish and the odd 20. So when I moved to London and was catching these like jet black mid 20-pounders, they were like incredible fish. So basically, I made Instagram. Well, I downloaded Instagram just purely to make a gallery of all the captures, and then like obviously gradually people started messaging me saying, "Oh, really cool carp," and then Urban Carp Collective, companies like that, and Canal Carp in UK, they'd like see my pictures and say they post them up, and then it just kind of built up gradually from there. I'd never really, like I said, I'm no good with technology, so I was never kind of let me get Instagram and promote my fishing or anything like that. It just kind of built up organically, and then step by step, I ended up then obviously joining with Dynamite, but we'll get into that later. But that's how it all started.
Right. I think it was Jack Reed that mentioned you originally to me and probably to a few others. He was on the podcast a while ago, and he mentioned your stuff. So have you always just shot it on your iPhone?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think back to the first. So I'd caught a few fish at the end of my second year in college on the canal. And then when I finished college, I went fishing a little bit more in London, say 2-3 times a week by that point. I had my own flat in London and, renting. I definitely didn't buy one. And I was sort of scooting around, learning about different venues. Didn't really know anyone within the carp circuit in London. So I was purely just going around and just dropping on random canals and hoping to catch. And then it would have been, I thought, these are really cool fish. I'm going to document the captures and try and put a little video together. So without trying to upset anyone, I sort of did little low-key videos on the canals and stuff. And that's when I put my first video together. And it was all shot on an iPhone. I'd like prop my phone up on a on like 2 bricks and then just get the fish and just quickly lift it up and go, oh yeah, lovely fish, and put it down again. It was terrible, really amateur. But that's the first video I put out, and I remember Jack actually messaged me on Instagram and asked for my WhatsApp, and then he messaged me saying he really enjoyed the video. And obviously, to me, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. The ESP guy, oh my god, I was really happy. And then I listened to the podcast that he did and on Baitworks, wasn't it? It was a Baitworks podcast, and he said like he was one of he enjoyed it more than most of the videos he'd watched on YouTube. And I was just like, oh, that meant a lot to me, obviously, because I just did it purely just out of a bit of fun and thought that they're cool captures, so I'll do a little video. And then from there on, I've tried to document as much as possible and make videos where I can. But obviously in London, you have to be respectful of other anglers. You can't film everything. And I don't want to have loads of regrets with making films just to try and get a few views. It's really not worth it. I'd rather just film what I can without upsetting anyone and what I think that won't bring a load of attention to the lake. So, yeah, that's where it all started, really.
Oh, nice. And obviously, as well, I suppose, as it's progressed in terms of the making the videos, do you find yourself sort of thinking ahead about what will make a good shot and bits like that, and sort of putting B-roll together and all of that stuff?
Yeah, so last year, it wasn't until last year that I even got a camera. Got a cheap second-hand Canon off one of my friends, and so that's when I started getting into like taking a better photo, and I'm getting an even better camera now, actually. So I'm just progressing gradually. Obviously, money's a big factor as well, but yeah, I'd watch videos and I think, how can I make them better? And it always happens. It's the same with the one I've been editing at the moment. It's you have an idea in your head of what you're going to do, but then when you go fishing on your own and you're so involved in the fishing itself, you forget to film stuff because you don't want to be setting a camera up and like walking into the swim twice. Like that's taking your mind off the fishing. So it is really hard to make a film yourself. So where I've been able to get friends come in, you can see that in videos when there's better shots, that's all friends doing it for me. So yeah, it's one of them. I try and learn on the job, if you like, but it's not easy to do it yourself.
That was going to be my next point, because obviously if you're just on your own, part of your fishing is jeopardized, isn't it, if you're trying to capture it?
Exactly 100%. Obviously GoPros coming out was a big thing. I got one of those last year, but I don't really use it that much, partly because it's got fisheye lens, so it sort of it's good for playing a fish because you can see the rod bending and the fish and right and left either side. But when you want to get like sort of detailed footage, it's terrible because you can see way too much. So there's too much in shot for it to focus on one specific thing. But they are good. Like say you get a bite, you can turn it on, and then. But other than that, like it's really difficult. Obviously, filming me getting on the tube, I just have to hold my iPhone of me walking on. You can't film me walking on with my gear, which is obviously is a much better shot. But luckily, I've got a few kind friends that do help me out and sort of meet me places and try and help me get little bits and bobs.
How do you cope with all the tube stuff? I mean, obviously, because I've seen some of your videos, obviously you've done a bit on topography as well.
Yeah.
That must be an absolute mission.
Well, it was on topography because Dave had me doing laps around the whole of the city. He was like, let's go there, let's go there, let's go there. But yeah, no, it's, do you know what I said to, I remember speaking to someone the other week, and I guess it's, if you don't know any other, if that's all you know, then it can't be too bad. Like if I had a car and I'd previously driven to all my spots, and then all of a sudden I was getting on the tube, that'd just be a nightmare. But I'd never really, like I say, I'd fished when I was younger, but it was all local. So basically, my carp fishing properly started in London, and immediately that was getting on the tube. So it was kind of ingrained from when I first started in London. So it is a nightmare. I'm not going to say it's fine, but it isn't as bad as people make out. And other people have done it before. Like you will get other people using public transport to go to places. And like I'm sure they'll all say it's a bit of a nightmare, but as soon as you arrive at the place, it's obviously stress free. Then you haven't got to worry about a car parking or getting fined or having to reel your rods in and run over and put another ticket on your car and all that. I mean, to me, that's even more stressful. So the tube can be a nightmare as long as you try and avoid rush hour. It's normally all right.
And so what sort of distance are you travelling then when you're using the the sort of local transport?
Well, recently, just over a year ago, I moved to my girlfriend's mother's house in West London. So from then on, it
Right.
was an absolute trek to get to anywhere, because we're talking like
Right.
not quite as far as Heathrow, but around that area. So it's like
Okay.
I've got to get a 15-minute bus to the station, then I've got to go the whole duration of the Central line to get to most places. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a mission. But the shop where I work, the aquarium, that's in Angel, so that's really central. So from
Right.
there, I normally keep my gear there, and from there
Yeah.
I'll go to other places. It just means that sometimes I've got to go from fishing to the shop to home just
Mm-hmm.
to make the next session easier, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
try and work it around work, and then it
And are you
normally.
still doing all your baiting up missions and things as well? Is that all done like
Yeah.
that?
So normally, if I'm fishing, obviously it depends where I'm fishing and sort of the structure of the campaign. But I'd say for the majority of the trips that I do, I'll do two nights a week, and then I'll go there and I'll break it up a
Mm-hmm.
bit. I'll separate all the trips, and then I'll bait up again a couple of days later, a day or two before my first night, say. So that I'm essentially doing 3 baiting up trips and then 2 nights fishing.
Right.
And it
Okay.
normally works out better that way.
Obviously, you mentioned briefly about some sort of companies you've been involved with. Do you want to talk a bit about that, like where it started and how it's evolved, maybe?
Yeah. So the first proper year that I'd fished in London, that's when I made the video. I released the video. I think it was it the end. It was either. I think it was winter. I think I released the video in winter, and at the end of
Mm-hmm.
winter, my mate was campaigning on one of the docks in London, and I dropped on for a quick night, and I managed to catch like 6 or 7, like complete flyer, really lucky, um, flicking out singles. And then I remember a friend came down and took pictures for me, and he had a really good quality camera, and he got me probably my first good shots I'd ever had, if I'm honest.
Right.
And I put them. I also downloaded a little. He gave me a bit of advice on this. It's called Plan. I don't know if you know it. It's like an Instagram app. It's just where you can organise your photos so that you're not just posting them in random order. I know it's not really, doesn't really matter a lot, but if you
Right.
can sort of put your pictures in so that the slightly colour coordinated, it just looks nicer. It's more appealing
Okay.
to look
Yeah.
at. So
Yeah.
I
So what?
downloaded.
So the grid's all in sort of
Yeah,
like a colour. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's so that you can see 12 pictures. So as you go on your feed, you can see 12 pictures, and you can sort of plan which ones you're going to put up in which order.
Okay.
So it's quite a
Mm-hmm.
cool little app, and he told me about that, and he took these pictures
Mm-hmm.
for me. I remember posting these up, and then I got a message off Dynamite a week
Right.
later. Obviously, I can't say it's because of those pictures, but there's a good chance that obviously they saw that I was posting good quality pictures, and nowadays that's can be a lot of it. Like obviously consistently
Yeah.
catching and doing your thing and being a bit different, but good quality photos and stuff like that plays a big part as well. So I got a message off Dynamite, and I was literally buzzing. I remember like I'd
Yeah.
never ever thought like, oh, I'm going to get sponsored. I remember speaking to
Mm.
one of my mates, Paul, and we were on the docks fishing, and I remember we were talking about sponsorship and just like, oh, like you can't really get sponsored in London. Like this was saying that like you've got to be sort of smashing up these ticket waters and sort of going around the circuit doing it. And I never expected to get sponsored, if I'm honest. And so when I got that message, I was at home with my girlfriend, and I went, oh my god, the Dynamite bait to just message me. Like I was buzzing, jumping around the house, and obviously I replied and said I'd love to work with you. And then it went on from there really.
Right.
Obviously, the end of that year, I made a film with them, The Lin,
Mm-hmm.
which was shot in London. And then I remember I met Alan at basically he just by chance I came home to do a bit of a trip in a place in Wales. So I came home from London, packed up
Right.
with all my gear, and my mum drove me all the way to Wales to fish a lake. Long story, won't go into that, but it's a lake I'd fished when I was younger, and there was some incredible, really nice dark scalies in there and big commons. So I thought, you know
Mm.
what, I'm going to take a little trip home and go there. As
Mm-hmm.
I've just dropped in my local tackle shop, 10 minutes from my house, and they were doing an open day, and Alan Blair was there, and Gaz Fareham, and
Yeah.
many other known anglers and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, winner, that's good. Look at that. So I ended up going over to Alan, having a chat with him. I showed him a couple of pictures, like you do, a bit of a fanboy.
Yeah.
Showed him a few pictures. Said, "Oh, I've just put these in London." Like, what? And he was like, "Oh, nice one, mate." And then, yeah, I think I saw him at a show. and then he said, oh, he'd been seeing my page and he enjoyed what I was doing and stuff like that. And then, I think it's just like I say, it's networking. It's just lucky that I met him that day, and obviously he saw my Instagram. And then Alan spoke to me a few times over the duration of the last year or two, and just said, would you be interested in coming on board with Nash? And obviously that was a massive thing to me. Like I use Nash gear already, obviously because it just works so well with me traveling on the tubes and stuff like that. So, but the thing is, I loved Dynamite as well. Like I really liked all the guys that worked for Dynamite. I got along with the filmmaker. I got along with the media team. Like, so it was really hard for me to leave, and I stayed with Dynamite for quite a while, and then in the end, I just went with my gut and I have to go with Nash because that suits my style of angling, and it was a tough decision because I didn't want to leave Dynamite. Like I say, I got along with everyone, but then I made the decision to go on board with Nash, and that was early this year. So I wasn't fishing at all over the winter. I was doing a dancing job, so I made my decision over then, and then so now I'm with Nash, so quite fresh. Joined in March, so hopefully that all goes well. I mean, I get on well with them guys. They're all really nice guys, Alfie, Dan, and Alan and stuff. So hopefully we can form a good relationship with them over the next years or so.
No, that sounds good, mate. So in terms of, I suppose you don't really know then, obviously with the lockdown, you've not really been out and done that much with them yet.
No. So obviously I did my Copper Mill. But they'd already filmed a piece on Copper Mill, as I'm sure most people are aware. They did a great little film with Alfie on the Copper Mill a few years ago on the DVD.
Right.
So it didn't really make sense for them to make a film with me on the Copper Mill, but I was going to make a video for myself, and they one of their guys lived quite local, so he came down and did some pictures for me, which was really good. So kind of involved in that. Like I did a podcast with Nash, so I went to the offices and stuff like that. And I went to the party last year as well, which was amazing. So I've spent some time with them. It's not like I've not met any of them yet. And but it's fairly new. I've not done much fishing at all. I was just about to start a new campaign as the lockdown was near enough announced. So a bit of a bummer, but same situation for everyone. So you can't moan, can you?
No, that's it. So do you know what your, I don't know, duties is just not the right word, is it? But what do you need to do for them? Is it just a case of putting some videos together? Do they come and help? Would you carry on doing what you do and send it to them to edit, or what?
So I'm not 100% certain on with the edits for them. I would say that it has to be of a certain standard, and obviously a style of edit that suits Nash as a brand. Like you've got obviously Samir, Carp Life, Samir and Claire. They film all their own stuff and they edit all their own stuff and then send it into Nash, and then it gets uploaded onto the Nash YouTube. But if I'm right in saying, I think that wasn't like an instant thing. I think Samir built that up and sort of spent a lot of time like on the editing and stuff, and then eventually it got onto the Nash YouTube. Obviously that's beneficial to Nash because they haven't got to employ someone to spend hours and hours editing your video. So that's like a big thing for them. Obviously my edits are not on that standard yet, so my videos won't be going up on the Nash page, but I'd like to hope that I'd be able to make some content with Nash, like with it being with their cameramen and stuff like that. And we did have some plans to do a few bits and bobs of filming this year, but obviously this virus coming up, it's not going to do that any favors, is it? So we'll have to see. But I'd really hope that we can do get some filming in.
No, definitely. Do you enjoy the editing side as much as the filming side?
I don't enjoy any of it. I'd have to say I'd say no. I don't know. I want to try and sound positive about it, but it's hard to. The editing's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort. But this time I did have a lot of footage. I never enjoyed filming it at all. Of someone, I try and get my friend Mike Tobin came and did a bit of the filming for me. So that obviously when someone else is filming you, it's fine. You just concentrate on your fishing. But when I'm filming myself, I don't enjoy it because you have to set, for example, like prop your camera up, or you're playing it, or the bite alarm goes off, and I've never caught a bite alarm going off. Like it's never gone off, and I've got my phone out and recorded it because I don't care about filming. I care about catching the fish. So I'd always just grab the rod. So I miss out on loads of good filming opportunities. So I don't enjoy the filming all that much. I enjoy making the videos because I love to watch it back.
Right.
That's one thing people say is, "Oh, why do you make videos? You just want it for the limelight and all this." And it's like, when I first made videos, it was nothing to do with that. I'd only just got Instagram. It was purely just because if you watch the video back, like everyone says, "Oh, the memory sticks with you," but it does to an extent. But when you see a picture or you watch the video, it brings it back in a different light, and you almost feel like you're present in the moment. So
like you won't remember a lot of the time when you've got a fish on the mat. It's all a bit of a blur, isn't it? Especially if it's a special one. It's all a bit of a blur, and it happens so quick. Like you say, you put it back. If you haven't got any, other than a couple of stills, if you haven't got any video footage of it,
it's kind of gone.
It's all a bit of a whirlwind,
isn't
it?
It's just a still shot, and you've caught it, and say the campaign's over, and blah blah blah. If you've got the video of it, then it's like I don't know. It's hard to explain, but for me, it just gives me that whole extra. Like, it's obviously that excitement element to it. So for me, when I watch the videos back, once I've finished editing, if by this point I haven't got so sick and tired of watching it that I just want to delete it. But yeah, that's definitely a benefit of doing videos, watching them back, and obviously letting other people see the adventures as well. Like, there's some people that've got some really cool, like some of obviously Tel's videos. Like, just imagine if they weren't documented. No, like obviously people would still know that he'd caught all these fish, but aren't they just magnificent? Like watching how he's caught them and like listening to him tell his stories about him catching these fish. Like without them, like them videos are amazing, like historic for carp fishing. And I know he's probably got people saying, "Oh, he's baiting places out and what have you." But as long as you're like reasonably respectful about the places, and it is a lot harder in London because there's not as many anglers and not as many waters, so you do have to be vigilant, obviously. But yeah, that's why I make videos, and if I can carry on making a couple, even one a year, two a year, of places that won't sort of be too obvious, then I'll carry on doing it because it's just really good fun. And if not, I'd always take videos of the fish anyway. And if I don't make a video, I'd just keep it for myself to look at. And
not only that, it's good as well for sort of younger people getting into it, because there'll be people looking up to you already and thinking, wow, that's really good. I didn't realize that was possible. And it's sort of inspirational for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, like the comments I get on my videos, they do inspire me a lot as well. Like people just think, "Oh, they're commenting because they've enjoyed it," but it does mean a lot to get positive comments and feedback. People saying, "Oh, this has inspired me. This has made me realise." Because when I moved to London, like I definitely got a lot of inspiration off a video, like stupid amounts. So I can take some of the negative comments because I know that when I was living in a dodgy little scabby flat, and I was thinking about like how much I missed fishing, and then I clicked on the one of the Corder Walthamstow videos and watched Danny Fairbass land that 40-pounder. I thought immediately, oh my god, that's it! I'm getting my gear. I'm going the Stow now. So I got loads of inspiration from it. So if people get the same from my videos, then I've achieved something in my mind. So.
Well, we had exactly the same thing with obviously when Tom Stokes was on. The amount of positive comments I got from his episodes, and it inspired me to get the rods out even
literally
in January. Yeah,
no, mate, his was unbelievable.
Yeah,
big ups, Tom Stokes. That was amazing, man. He's just like the amount of detail that he went into. Like I can't remember what I had to eat 5 minutes ago, and that he was remembering which which breed of fly landed on a tree at which time. It's mental. It's amazing. Obviously, Burfield's an iconic water, and that fish is just something else. So everyone's engaged from the word off because they just want to know how he caught it, what he did, and he had a really good story to that. So that was a brilliant podcast.
Where do you see your angling going? Obviously, with you getting a bit older, eventually you're going to be driving and everything else. Have you got sort of plans to fish a bit further afield? Are there any sort of circuit waters or iconic waters that you've got an eye on?
So, at the moment, I am still carrying on with the performing. For anyone who's listening who didn't listen to me mention it before, I've just bought a boat. Basically, I've paid the deposit. It's a small river cruiser in one of the docks in London, and me and my partner are moving on to that. We're going to hopefully be living on there for about 3-4 years, potentially up to 5 or 6. And so that'll sort of be my fishing in London, I think. And then I'll keep performing mainly I do need to stay in London or within sort of the fringe of London, just because of my performing. I need to be able to get into central London. And if I'm lucky enough to book a West End job, obviously I need to be as close as possible. So that's probably the next 4 or 5 years fishing in London. And there's a lifetime of fishing in London, for sure. But I don't want to be doing it my whole life. I mean, I can't even stand up on this damn boat, and my head hits the top. So I don't want to. I don't want to be stuck on it for 10 years. But yeah, and then after that, my partner, she wants to live in Windsor because her mum doesn't live too far from there. Obviously, West London, it's just going a bit further out. And obviously, as you know, Clone Valley, the fishing is the one over there. So I'm well up for that. We've looked at like a few houses, obviously, sort of dreaming. We haven't got any money to buy one, but like a few houses.
It's not cheap there, is it?
No. A few houses on the Thames, like literally with the Thames in your back garden in Windsor. Like if not, we'll just get a cheaper place, but it will be around that area. So that's when I'll have a car, and that's when I'm going to go on the big one, because I know it's a bit obvious. Everyone says the same thing. Oh, I'm going to go for them original, UK big ups to UK old fish and all that kind of thing. But that is what gets me going. Like I don't have any interest whatsoever. Loads of people do, and I understand why. Like you don't have as much time. You work 5 days a week. You just want to go and have a nice social. So you go to places like Linear and whatever else. But for me, like that's just a nightmare. Like even Farlow's like one of the most, like I think one of the tidiest day tickets you can go to. Really, like all the fish are like brilliant, really dark, nice scaly ones. And even there, when I go there, I went there and I caught a few, and I just didn't feel. I just wasn't. I'd caught like 12 or 13 carp, and I just wasn't. I thought, I can't wait to go back in the city and like fish for some. I don't know what it is. So for sure, when I move into my house, sort of west, I'll be fishing around them big lakes, low stock ponds, and just try and find a lifetime's worth of angling, really, and sort of on the hunt. Whether or not I'll still do videos, and whether or not I'll be with companies, I don't know. Like it's hard to say in this time, obviously, but I just obviously this is another thing that everyone sort of says they want, but I would love to have a fishery as well. Not so much a fishery as in a ticket, but I would love to. I'd love to either buy an old piece of land off a farmer or someone that sort of can't look after a fishery anymore and take over, and just have my own little, even if it's just for me and a few friends to fish. And that's something that I'd love to do. There's a few.
Yeah, I mean it's all doable, mate. It's just I think what a lot of people don't realise is what they have to sacrifice to get something like that.
For sure,
your fishing will probably go out the window for a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's just making sacrifices, isn't it?
Exactly.
And deciding how much you want it.
That's something.
Let's rewind a little bit, mate, about obviously the living on the boat. How's that going to go about logistics? 2 of you showering. What's what there?
There basically is no shower. It's like a tiny. As you walk onto the boat, to put it into perspective, the boat's not tiny. So if you watch Terry's film, that'll be fresh on most people's minds who are listening to this. It's bigger than that. Like it is to live on, but it's not. It's not a narrow boat, a canal boat. It's like a small river cruiser, and if I can explain it now as a visual, you'd walk in. You've got a little area, probably couple of square meters, enough for a couple of chairs. Basically, you've got the little steering wheel. That's for another. In a few minutes, I'll talk to you about me taking it out, and then you go down a little stairway, and you've got a little tiny little seating area, enough to seat 2 or 3 people. A little kitchen, and you've got a little cupboard that you open, and it's got a toilet, and then directly on top of that, you've got a little handle with a little shower on it. So it's like there's not an actual shower. You just but the dock that the mooring is in, they have a shower facility.
Okay.
So obviously that makes it difficult if we're to move it, but we have got a permanent mooring in there. So we're not looking to move it out. That's where the boat is. Like there's like a 12-year waiting list to get into this marina. So the price we paid for the boat is way more than it would be if we bought it, say, up north or on the canal somewhere, because we're paying for the mooring as well as the boat.
Okay.
So we've got that secure little place. And like I say, it's small and I'm quite tall, so it's not ideal. I'm not going to live there for 10 years, but it's a perfect little place for me and my partner to live for a couple of years. And the mooring's cheap. So if anyone's looking to do that, I mean, it's a great idea. And you've got obviously you've got canals and rivers where you don't have to pay mooring at all. You can just move every couple of weeks. But that wasn't ideal for us because my girlfriend wanted the safety of being in one place, having security, and obviously having a train station daily so that you can get into some kind of routine, not be moving around all the time.
And I suppose you've got like a bit of a community aspect to it as well if you're in the same place.
Exactly, you've got neighbours and all the rest of it, and yeah. But funnily enough, the boat's actually got 2 Honda engines in it, and the guy who showed us round, he said, "Oh yeah, it hits a bit of speed." My girlfriend said, "Well, we don't need that, do we? Because we're not going to move it." I said, "You must be having a laugh. I'm definitely moving it." Because
a couple of spinning rods out the back.
Literally, the boat, you can take it out on the Thames. You don't need a license, but you basically just need to hire a captain to take it out first so that you can learn how to drive it, essentially. So all we'd have to do is book a time for them to open the lock gates. And we'd just go through and we'd be on the Thames. And then I'll just take it on missions up. Like, I'll probably not straight away, but after a year, come on, I can't have a boat that's just in a dock off the Thames and not take it for a mission, can I? So it is going to go. It will take flight, but it probably won't be for another year or so. I won't be moving it.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting.
Oh mate, buzzing! Like the way it came about was just unreal. It's like I said to my girlfriend, we can't afford a flat. Like the rent's over £1,000 a month. It's not realistic. But I do want to move out. Like we can't be stuck at your mum's the whole time. Like it's your mum's house. Like she doesn't want another guy just sort of sloping around for years and years. So I said, what about a boat? She was like, no, you just want it for fishing. And then she looked into a few. And then say a couple of months passed after I did this job. I was in Harlow, basically commuting. So I was hardly seeing my partner. And she started just looking and sending me a few links through. And she sent me one in this dock, and just by chance, this is the dock where I'd caught from before, and I'd fished there quite a bit. And I thought, oh, okay. I won't say anything. I won't say anything about the fishing. And she went, oh yeah, can you maybe call up, because I found a really cheap boat that we could afford, and it's got residential mooring. So I called up Marina, and it was the cheapest marina basically in London. The mooring fees, and I thought, oh my god, we're on to a winner. And then it's literally happened in the blink of an eye. I couldn't. Right. I would have dreamed of this happening. Like it's an ideal scenario, and it just all came. It just all happened. Like unreal. And so now I'm sat there talking about it, and it won't be till I take a step on the boat that I realise just how lucky it was that it all happened. Yeah, buzzing for that.
So when do you get to go on it? Is it all you just literally waiting on the lockdown to finish now?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's a bit of a nightmare. We paid the deposit. The completion date was the 31st of March. Right. So that's when we had to hand over all the paperwork and pay for the boat and whatever else. And obviously this happening, we don't want to complete because we're not going to be on the boat. Yeah, because I'm at home up north with my family. Yeah, the marina are not dropping mooring fees, so it's still going to cost us 400 quid, a couple of hundred quid each a month, and we've both got no job. I'm not being paid because I'm self-employed, so I work 0-hour contract at the shop. Yeah. So it's just unrealistic that we take it now. So we spoke to the estate agent. He spoke to the owner, and she agreed to pay for till the end of April, and then reevaluate the situation. And now she's sort of now she's having a bit of a huff. Sort of, she sent us a notice for 10 days because we haven't complied. And it's like, well, you agreed, so what you want about? So now we're sort of stuck. But the courts, even if she did sort of put a case forward and say they need to pay up, the courts won't be opening for a couple of months. So by that point, it'll be a case of she'll have had to pay until this virus is over, and then either we'll lose the deposit to cover what she's had to pay, or we'll be fine. So we'll have the boat either way, but it could just be a case of losing a few £1,000s, which is really annoying. But you can't make investments in this current climate when you've got no job. So I'd rather lose a couple of thousand than risk losing the whole boat.
Yeah. What about with the logistics of storing kit, storing bait, everything else? How's that going to go down?
Well, you can stand on the top of the boat. So, and the front of it's like bow fronted with luckily, I don't know how I got consent for this, but she said I can actually put my gear on top of the boat. I mean, I mentioned it briefly, expecting to slap me around the head and say, no way, you're putting fishing gear on the boat. But she said I can. she said I can put the stuff on the boat, and obviously I just put a waterproof cover over it, stop the rain rusting. But yeah, that it'll go on there, it'll go over the side of the boat, and then I'll be able to keep say 10 kilo at once in a tub or something somewhere. So that's, annoyingly, I can't fish off the boat. Absolute killer.
Right.
So obviously I can walk 30 seconds around the corner and fish on the dock, but it's basically where my boat is kept. There's no fishing in that dock.
Yeah.
But then,
Right.
yeah, exactly. But then it channels through to another one, and I can fish in that one. So I will be just moving
Okay.
off the boat and fishing the dock. But yeah, there's no fishing on the boat. But like I say, I'll take it out and fish on the Thames anyway. So it's not like it's the end of the world.
Yeah. Have you done quite a few scouting missions to see what's what around there?
Yeah, we've viewed the boat 3 times actually. So
Yeah.
we walked around. I know where the boat is. Yeah, we went to look at it. Sort of spent an hour or so in there, sort of checking out the bed and whatever else. But yeah, I know the area well. A few of my friends live there. A couple of places I've fished really local to that, so it's going to be really good. Like I've got a few mates that live really close by, so and it's only 20 minutes from the shop, so it's definitely going to benefit my fishing in all forms. Like being able to get to venues quicker. Obviously, I can go walk 5 minutes and get to a couple of different venues, go for evening sessions after work, and then go back home to my boat. So it will benefit my fishing massively. And obviously, it's a cool little thing anyway, like for my videos and stuff, like making sort of setting my rods up on the boat and going for a little mission. Like it's a
Yeah.
cool concept, and it's something I'm really looking forward to.
So in a way, I suppose it sort of works with it being the close season. That sort of takes the pressure off a bit for you in terms of gagging to get back out.
Yeah, kind of. A water that most of the waters that I'd be fishing now wouldn't be closed anyway, annoyingly. But the place I was just about to start a campaign on is open, but at the same time, venues around that area are closed. So I reckon it would have been quite busy. So if anything, it's done me a
Right.
favour because with everything reopening when this lockdown comes off, that place should hopefully be pretty quiet. So I'm not too fussed at the moment. I've got a trip booked to Ashmead on the 10th of is it 10th of June? I can't wait. I
Right.
can't wait for that. That place is just
Yeah.
oh mate, unreal. Been
Nice.
there once before, and I was really unlucky. They were all spawning. I did manage to catch one and lose a few, so I'm really
Right.
looking forward to that. And fingers crossed that trip still
Yeah.
goes forward.
Yeah. It's a hell of a water, isn't it?
Oh mate, unreal. Really good. It's like you're. It's the complete opposite to my fishing in London. Like you're just away from everything. You can't hear anything but birds singing. That's it. And you're really like in tune with the lake and sort of loads of big carp, weedy, shallow. You can sort of set traps and wait or chase them round, and it's like you go with a group of 5 or 6, and
Yeah.
there's probably 80 swims. And last time I went, the other guys just sort of had a social and all stayed near the car park. So I was like the only one sort of out on these little islands, and there's like so many different islands. I don't know if you like people listening will
Yeah.
know of Ashmead, but it's basically it's like it's kind of a syndicate. It's a winter syndicate, but it's open for bookings during the year, like throughout the year, and 5 or 6 anglers at a time. The owner, he basically books people that have already been there or that he knows. So it's quite hard to get
Yeah.
in. You have to wait for someone to pull out to join a group. So last time I joined a group of people, like I say, they were just all set up. So it was just magical. I was there for 3 days, and it is well worth the money. That's for sure. Really nice.
Yeah. What sort of style of angling do you typically go with, Jacob?
So in general, just on sort of in general waters, or do you mean that sort of?
Yeah, no, both.
Yeah,
Both
both.
there and in general.
So like anyone, I love my surface fishing. If they're on the top, I can see them taking the hook bait. I can angle for them visually. That's always a winner. If you can fish in the edge, you see them coming in, you see them drift out, drop the rig in. Obviously, that's always the best way of catching them. But I don't mind like whatever anything really, whatever catches the fish. I'd say 90% of the time I revert to type, and I'll pre-bait a spot, and make sure it's clear, make sure the fish are eating the bait, and just say fish like a snowman on a clean bottom, and just sort of use bit of particle, bit of boilies, and never sort of overbait. Yeah, so quite try and keep it as simple as possible. Really, don't want to
Yeah.
overcomplicate anything, but if need be, I will obviously branch out and try new methods. If the fish are obviously up in the water, I try zigs or whatever I can really to catch a fish. But most of the time in London, they're not necessarily the hardest fish to catch. It's normally just a case of being active, being the first one there, being really dedicated and driven to get there and bait up and find where the fish like to spend the time. Similar to textbook, really, similar to most places. Just got to be motivated. Motivation's like the key, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you sort of just taught yourself over the years with YouTube and everything else, or have you had someone that you sort of looked up to and been mentored by, or?
Yeah, so my dad taught me when I was younger. He taught me float fishing and sort of the real basics, trotting and stuff. And my brother-in-law, he's quite big into match fishing. So he took me to junior matches where I learned how to pole fish on the flat float on the rivers and like a few different methods. Obviously, feeder fishing for bream. So I'd say like quite diverse as an angler. Like I'd like to say that I can cover most styles of fishing, and that definitely helps in carp fishing as well. Like a lot of people go straight into carp fishing, and it's almost like going into dancing without doing ballet. It's like that's the core foundation that builds up the strength. And I think match fishing, the style of it does definitely help carp fishing as well, because you can take that approach and add that into your carp fishing. It definitely helps. So yeah, I'd say it started off with that. Went into sort of, I remember when I was really young, maybe 11 or 12, I bought my first rig wallet, and I'd sort of tied every rig that was known on the market. Just I'd write on the plastic pouches. I'd be like, oh, D rig, KD rig, oh, this rig, that rig. Just tie a few of them and put them in there as you do. You're trying to learn it all, overcomplicating it looking back. But I remember doing that, and I watch all the Corda videos, the Nash videos, a bit of everything really. And then I've been I can't say I've been inspired by one angler. I get inspired by loads of different anglers. Like anyone with motivation, no matter what it is. Like I watch every video. I say I don't like day ticket wars like linear, but I'll still watch all the videos, because there's just something about like people being driven to go out and catch fish. It just gets me going as well. So I watch all the videos, and they all motivate me. And I'd say just the carp, like that's what gets me going. Like if it's the carp that I really want to catch, then I'll just be like, I'll go to bed thinking about it, I'll wake up thinking about it, and there's nothing that can stop that happening. My girlfriend blimmin' hates it. I don't stop talking about fishing. It's just how it is, isn't it? If you've got that sort of burning desire, you've just got to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any funny stories you can share with us?
I had a feeling you were going to ask that. I'm really bad. Obviously, because I do a lot of urban angling, it's always like a known question that pops up. But I don't have a lot of good stories, or I just forget. To be honest, I've said a couple. I told a few before. I had one guy knocking on the top of my bivvy in the middle of the night, and sort of banging on it, sort of muffling to himself. So I popped out and said, "You right, mate? You right?" Oh, Nash. And I was, because I had a tighten up, and I was with Nathan from iPhone Carpers doing a session in like a proper built up city spot at Shadwell Basin, it's called. This guy come over and he was just going off his head. I don't know what he was on about. He was either drunk or on some kind of drug. And Nathan, anyway, I thought Nathan was asleep, so I was just trying to calm this guy down. Anyway, Nathan's woken up and put his shoes on, jumped out the bivvy and started going AWOL. You're not going to break no one's gear, mate. All this, and I was like laughing inside, but I didn't want it to kick off. I've had I've had stuff like that. I've been like fishing, and someone's been like, it's been dead quiet. It's like 3 a.m. Some guy's just like jumping around, going crazy, like near a shopping mall, just like jumping in the air, doing loads of turns and stuff. Like the things you see is just weird. Like obviously foxes, you get loads of foxes in London that they'll come in your bivvy, and you just hear like your boilies disappearing, and it's just running off with a kilo of boilies. Like nightmare. I have got one cool story that I thought, actually, if you did ask this question, it's not necessarily funny or a weird story, but when I think back to it, it's like quite a good memory. So I was fishing on the canal. This was right at the start of moving to London, and I ended up. I was fishing a little spot. I'd caught a few. The very first fish I caught in London, really nice, mid-20 jet black commons, like just phenomenal fish. And I remember I wanted to go back to this spot, and I got there and there's a few people fishing there, like they were like having a barbecue, and it was like right near a main road on the Regent's Canal. They were like barbecued up, like just kind of bream fishing, a bit of carp fishing, like not serious carp angling. So I'd sort of climbed over a fence and went into some private land. And anyway, I ended up getting really, really friendly with the locals in there. So they ended up like bringing me water, food, and they ended up like getting into fishing a little bit. And so that ended up being a really nice like scenario. And there's a few good fish in this little stretch of canal. Anyway, one night we were all chilling, and this fish kept like swirling in the middle of the canal, and it was like 11 o'clock, flat calm. I'd got the rods out. We had like they basically this is another story. Basically, a wire pinged off from the other side of the bank and hit one of them in the eye one day. So they made a claim, right? They made a claim and ended up getting this like little silly canoe thing. Oh god, weird story. So they had this little canoe, so they let me use it for my fishing. So when I could, when it got really weedy in the summer, I'd go out on this little canoe and drop the rigs in, come back, set up, slept on the floor on the concrete with a little sort of broken brolly over my head back then. And we're all chilling there, and this fish is rolling. Just kept rolling in the middle, and you don't see that many carp here. Like it's one of them spots you don't see them all the time. And we're like, what is going on there? That fish just keeps rolling. Surely it's on the bait and it's just coming up and that. And then I had one bleep, but I had these blimmin' there was like a midnight activity going on. And do you know those paddle boards where that people stand up on and they're sort of rowing round, but they're standing up on these like boards? They were going up and down the canal and kept going over my line, so I just ignored this bleep, and then this carp just kept swirling, and I thought, that surely something's going on. So like an idiot, I've got in this little boat. It's about 12 o'clock at night. I can see silhouettes because of the street lamps, and I've sort of drifted over, and I've seen this carp, this mid-20 long common with a bright pink pop up in its mouth. Oh crap! That's mine. It's on the thing. It's on my line. So I've got the line. I've grabbed the line from where it's coming off the rod. It's going to the other end of the canal. So I've pulled, and I'm pulling myself in the boat, but the line's going to the spot. So I'm now going away from the fish, and I've got to the spot, and it's like doing a U-ey underneath a massive weed bed. So obviously the fish had just gone under the weed bed, and somehow it must have kited and not taken line. So obviously for me to get a bleep. So I've got all this. I've literally took 10 minutes getting all this weed off in the pitch black. I've pulled myself over, and I'm in direct contact with this fish, and it's going like rolling on the top. It's all like the line's cutting my fingers and everything. It was mental. And like at the time, I'd only caught a couple of 20s from this spot, and this was like a big common. It looked really big and dark, and that's sort of going off, and this little tiny boat's rocking like I'm going to fall in. But mates, I say mates, the guys that lived in the flats, I think there was 2 guys out, and their kids had gone to bed by this point. So they were just sitting there chilling out, sort of laughing. They weren't even bothered. They weren't carp anglers. They were just laughing at me. I said, I've got a massive fish here, and I've got no net. I've got no net. So in the end, I tried to grab the fish, and I remember trying to pick it up out of the water, and the canoe nearly tipped over, and it's flapped me, and it's just wet me all in my face, and I've ended up getting hold of it, and I'm holding this carp, leaning over, and I'm holding this 25 pounds jet black common, and I was like, I have to get this in. I'm holding it, and the only way I could think of getting it in, my mate had to pick my rod up. This guy had to pick the rod up and reel, and all the line, just you can imagine, because I've obviously towed all the line from the weed, so all the line is wrapped round me. So he's pulling on me, and he's like cutting into me on the boat and everything. And he's oh mate, it was mental. And he's pulled me in from the rod, and he's just towed me eventually. And then I've said, "Pass me that net." So he's launched the net as I've got close, and I've just scooped him in the net. And although it's not like a crazy story, I always remember it because it was like one of them just weird circumstances where and it was amazing. I obviously got it in the net, and that was my PB at the time, 25 pound jet black. And the following morning, I then caught the target that I wanted from that canal. So that session was just really memorable, and that was like when I say jet black, just unreal. 28 pound mirror. I saw it. It weeded me up, and I saw it roll. It's probably one of the most exciting captures I've ever had, because I'd been so like one of my early campaigns, and I saw this fish in the water the day before. I really wanted to catch it, and catching that out the canal, that was memorable for me. And obviously that session with that common as well. I had 2 PBs in 12 hours, and it all happened. It was all really weird. So I'd say that's one of my coolest stories, and it might not compete with, say, fighting and all weird occurrences on the bank. But for me, that's something that I had to tell because I've never mentioned it before, and I remembered it today, and I thought I really want to mention that little story.
No, that's a good one. I love that. What we'll do now, we'll move on to the rotary letter style question we do.
Yeah.
And your one is from Rich Shenton. It's, what would your baiting strategy be? So, light or heavy, so on a newer water?
Yeah, so obviously it's dependent on the water, but I'll pick a venue so that I can give some kind of detailed description. So say I'll go with where I'm going to be fishing after the lockdown. So say somewhere like Ashmead, not really low stock, but not loads of fish, weedy waters and stuff like that. I'd normally fish for a bite at a time, always. But obviously, if there's a lot of fish and you want to hold them in the swim, I'd put more bait in. 80% of the time I use particle. I think particle's really good for keeping the fish in the swim for longer, keeps them grubbing. And obviously, you just have to make sure that when you're fishing, there's not a load of particle down there, because then it can take ages to get a bite. But yeah, most of the time, I'm not a heavy baiter, but it could just be because of the places I've fished. I think a lot of bait can obviously be beneficial, but for the majority of it in London, it's always fishing for a bite at a time, normally.
Nice. Okay, that's a good answer. Before we go on to your question, another question is sort of quite a good one on Watercraft.
Yeah.
What would be sort of your 3 most used or most important aspects of Watercraft? How would you go about it, finding fish and everything else, and building up a plan?
Yeah. So Watercraft. So point number 1, I'll start by saying that I think weather plays a big part, but I'm not going to involve weather in my 3 points, which might shock some people, because I think that people get this preconceived sort of idea that, if this weather happens, the fish are going to do this. And I think carp often behave in the same way, but at the same time, it is really dependent on the venue. If it's sheltered by a load of trees, they won't be affected by the wind. So it doesn't matter if a big southwesterly wind comes in. It will matter if there's a low pressure, but it won't matter as much if a big wind comes in. So for me, I would say the number 1 point for Watercraft would be finding where the fish are comfortable feeding, not just where they are, when not just seeing them, finding out where they want to actually feed is one thing, so that you can be a step ahead of them and have a rig where they want to be feeding before they've come there. One thing flicking on the head, but if you can get a rig in before, so that's my number 1 thing, finding where they want to feed. Number 2 is obviously birds and stuff like that as well. It's not so much in London, but some places I fish park lakes, like birds do give it away. Loads of people talk about it. Scott Lloyd's big on it. A few other anglers big on it. It's like if you see a tufty flare up, it's been more often than not, it's been spooked by a fish. So big waters, birds can help. Yeah, Watercraft. What else? I'm trying to think of a third thing. For me, it's just finding the fish. Like being maybe one thing would be how to find them. Obviously, if you can climb trees, be careful, because it's not the safest way of finding fish. But if you can find the fish by climbing trees, it's just about keeping your eyes on the water. Same old stuff. Like people have said it many times. It's not going to be anything new that I'm saying here. But if you can spend as much time as possible learning the lake, every blank is still a learning curve. Like you've not blanked and failed. If you've blanked but you've seen a fish at the other end, next time the first place you look is the other end, and then like I say, if you can be a step ahead of the fish, then you'll definitely maximise chances of catching. That'd be the advice that I could give.
No, really good. Yeah, decent. I like that. Okay, have you got a question that we can ask our next guest?
I have. So my question is kind of off the topic we've just spoke about. What's your explanation on why fish do or don't follow a wind?
Nice.
It's a big thing for me, because I know a lot of people go off wind direction and all that, but why do fish follow a fresh southwesterly? Why do they go off the back of a wind? Why do they not follow? I think it's a broad question, but I think a few really technical anglers, maybe anglers that really follow the wind, they'll be able to give a good answer. It's something that I'd like to hear. So I thought that.
Yeah, I suppose you've got undertow and everything like that, haven't you, that comes into that one?
Yeah.
Sides of the water, like you say, whether it's sheltered or not. That's a really good question, mate.
Naturals. People say carp like to feed going upstream, so it's the undertow, so they swim into it to feed. You got naturals blowing down. There's loads of things.
Features, if there are islands and things as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a really good one, mate. Okay, and then one last point just before we wrap up. I'm getting everyone to do a 60-second sketch of a carp.
Yeah.
Film it, take a picture, and then send it to me, and we can do a little competition.
If you see my Instagram story, me and Matt did a challenge on drawing a carp, and it was horrendous. So if it's anything like that, you're not in for.
That's right, mate.
You're in for a treat.
There won't be any mega awards one.
No worries. All right then, I'll get on that.
Thank you. Right, Jacob, I think we'll wrap up there, mate. That's been great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, and all the best. Hopefully we'll have a chat after this lockdown's over, mate.
Yeah, definitely. Take care.
Thanks a lot, mate. Have a nice day.